gentlemen, I am Caroline Clare. I am going to present your teacher, Mr. Beavers.
Hi guys, she's been waiting 4 days to do that, so I gave her the opportunity to come down here. So, all right, so today we're going to look at Japan as we continue this trend of imperialism. So we start with Africa in January when we got back from break. We are 2 weeks away from spring break and still doing it. So this will probably be the last that we look at imperialism. So as we're looking at Japan, it's important to understand that they are going to do things a little bit different than China. Initially, both China and Japan had isolated themselves from the world, but as they are colonized, as they are taken over, they become more aggressive towards other countries. So we're going to look at that right now. All right, so as I said, 1600s, Japan is this isolated country. They have cut off themselves from the rest of the world. Very little contact with the West, both the United States and with European nations. They only trade with two countries. Okay, they're only trading with the Netherlands and with China. They have one port open to those countries at Nagasaki, and you all should be familiar with Nagasaki because, as you know, that is one of the places that the atomic bomb was used that helped bring about the end of World War II. So, in Japan, we have what's called a shogun. And the shogun is this military commander, this military leader that has so much power that they're actually more powerful than the emperor himself. Okay? And in the 1600s, when this whole isolation period begins, you have this group called the Tokugawa. Okay? And their shogun is going to take power in the early 1600s, and they are going to be the ones responsible for shutting Japan off to the rest of the world. Okay? And as I said, they're only trading with the Netherlands and with China. Okay? 1600s. You know, for almost 200 years, over 200 years, this is the only group that they are trading with. But much like in India and much like in China, okay, the West wants and desires to trade with these places. Okay? Every time that the West goes in to organize trade with Japan, the emperor says no. Okay? Tokugawa says no. Okay? So constantly refused. And it's not going to be until 1853, okay, when the United States shows up. Or it's always us, right? It's always the United States. They show up, okay, led by this guy Matthew Perry over here. Okay, not the guy from Friends. I know many of you guys watch Friends on Netflix. Okay? And he shows up with 4 military ships. And in hand, he has a letter from the President of the United States, Millard Fillmore. And that letter basically says to Japan, you have 1 year to open up your ports to us, or else. Okay? Tokugawa understands that they cannot fight the United States. Okay? They cannot get into a military conflict with the United States. So he reluctantly is going to open up the ports. Okay? A year later. Perry said he was going to return in a year. He comes back in a year. He opens up the ports. Okay? And the Japanese are going to sign the Treaty of Kanagawa, okay, which opens up 2 ports to the United States ships and grants American citizens extraterritorial rights. Okay, so if you think back to when we talked about China, these extraterritorial rights are going to make these foreigners not subject to the law of Japan. Okay, so the foreigners can come in, do whatever they want, get away with whatever they want, and there's no accountability to Japanese law. Cece, you bored yet? Or are you good?
I'm good.
You have any questions?
Why is it Kanagawa?
And that's what they were called. That's what the Japanese called it.
Well,
Treaty
that's
of
weird. Kanagawa!
All right, so we're going to go about 15 years now under this new circumstance that has been handed down with the United States. Okay, the people. Okay, some of those people are samurais. Samurais are some of my most favorite people. Okay, I think in a past life I might have been a samurai. I think that'd be pretty cool. So they're pretty mad that the emperor and the shogun just gave in to the American demands, right? So they're gonna start fighting back, and they have this revolt, and now the people are going to get behind the emperor to overthrow the rule of the shogun. So they are going to, the emperor is still there throughout all this, but the emperor doesn't have any power. They are going to overthrow the shogun, and they are going to put the emperor back in power to restore order. Okay, if you look at the very bottom bullet, Mutsuhito takes over. He's 15 years old. Just think about that. Okay, all throughout the year, we've talked about different ages and things like that. Okay, so when we were watching Gandhi, one of the things was, Gandhi was married at 13. That's like you guys get married. Now you're being forced to rule a country that's in the middle of a revolt. Okay, at the age of 15 years old. Okay, so the shogun steps down in 1867, and the emperor is going to once again restore order and take power. Okay, the rule of Mutsuhito is called the Meiji, or the Enlightened Rule. So this is the title that he kind of takes on for himself and his era. Okay, the Meiji era. Okay, and his rule is going to last for 45 years. Takes over when he's 15 years old, all right? So, as the emperor and as the one who has really all this authority in Japan, Mutsuhito is going to do his best to modernize Japan. Okay, and what better way to modernize Japan than look at the countries who are already modern? Okay, so just like the Chinese are going to send people out to the rest of the world to try to take their best ideas and bring them to Japan, or to China, Japan's going to do the same thing. So they are going to send people to Germany, to Britain, to the United States, and kind of get a sense as to what's happening in those places. So they are going to pattern their government on a strong central government and a constitutional model like they had in Germany at this time. They are going to use Germany's army as a way to build up their own army. Okay, Britain had the strongest navy, so if you're going to copy somebody's navy, your best bet is to go copy the British Navy. They're going to do that. And they're going to use the American school system where the Americans educate everybody. Okay, so Japan says, well, let's educate all of our people. Universal education for their schools, so everybody's going to have an opportunity. All right, so they take the best from these other places to make it work for them. Okay, as they are attempting to modernize. Okay, they are also going to follow the path of the West with industrialization. Okay, at this point in time, big industries is a big deal in a lot of those countries, in the United States and Britain. Germany's industrialized, France industrialized. Japan doesn't want to fall too far behind, so they're going to start doing that as well. And by the early 1900s, they have one of the most modern, powerful economies in the world because of their ability to industrialize. Okay, they're going to have their first railroad built in 1872, kind of on par with some of these other countries. All right, not exactly equal, but on par. They're going to improve their production of coal. Okay, and think about the uses that they would have for coal as we're moving forward. And the government is going to build thousands of factories where they can produce goods that they need for themselves. But once you're producing goods in your factories for yourself, you can also sell those goods to other places. So think about Britain, think about the United States. As they become these imperial powers, as they become these industrial powers, right, they need somebody to sell their stuff to. So Japan has these factories. Japan is building their own stuff, manufacturing their own goods. Well, eventually everybody in Japan is going to have what they need, right? So now, Japan becomes this imperial power. Okay? By 1890, they have dozens of warships. Okay? They're going with the British model. They're following that. Over 500,000 soldiers. Okay? Once they strengthen their military and strengthen their standing in their own country, they're saying, you know what? We don't need these foreigners anymore. So they're going to get rid of those extraterritorial rights. So now if you want to stay in our country, that's fine, but you're going to be subject to Japanese law, not your own law. Okay? And they promised the other countries, hey, listen, if your people want to stay, we're going to be fair to them. But they have to follow our code of law. If there's any questions that you have when you're watching this, if you just put a comment either on the YouTube link or if you comment in your discussion board page, I'll do my best to get back to them. I'm thinking about, I mentioned this to one or two students yesterday and today, that if there's something that you're confused on or talk about like going live and things like that as a different tool, so if there's something that we can do, if you guys ask me questions, I can put together like a discussion thing where I'm answering your questions. I haven't figured out exactly the whole live thing. I know some of the teachers are trying it and they're having some problems with it. So until I'm comfortable doing it where it will work, I'm not quite ready to do that yet. So that's just an idea. If you have questions or concerns from each PowerPoint, just put them on the comment for the PowerPoint, and then I can get back to, I can put something together to answer those questions, okay? All right, so moving forward, as I mentioned, Japan now is this imperial power, okay? Them and China kind of shared what was happening in Korea. Okay, Korea's in between the two countries. So Japan goes in and says, hey, listen, you're going to open up your ports. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And 1885, Japan and China agree, like, listen, we're going to just be hands off with Korea. We're not going to be involved. We don't want to have any fighting there. Let's kind of be civil about things. And about 10 years later, China breaks that agreement. Okay, they go in to try to help the king put down a revolution, a rebellion in Korea, and Japan's like, all right, you violated it, so let's fight. Okay, so we have the first Sino-Japanese War. It lasts a couple months. Okay, 1894 to 1895, and Japan wins. And as a result, Japan gains a foothold in Manchuria, which is to the eastern part of China. So I don't have it on here, but if you, there's a map, Manchuria up here. So Japan is going to gain land here. They're going to gain they're going to gain Korea. So now they're just taking land from China, that China had control. Okay, we were here. Okay, this is just an image. You have this guy, one of these samurais, against the Chinese. So think about the picture. Why does the Japanese samurai look so much smaller than the Chinese? Okay, think about that. Okay, you can see on the bottom, it's showing a victory of small Japan over large China. Okay, Japan is now they're rising as a world power. Okay, so they beat one big country, they defeated China. Now they're going to go and fight Russia. Okay, and Russia and Japan are going to get in a fight over Manchuria. And again, if we look at this map again, and you got Russia up here. Okay, they're interested in this. Russia controls all of this. Okay, little tiny Japan has this. Oh, has this. So in 1903, Japan offers to recognize Russia's rights in Manchuria as long as Russia stays out of Korea. Now, sorry I keep going back and forth to the map. Why would Korea be of importance to Russia? Okay, think about when we were talking about Crimea a couple weeks ago. What's true of Russia is that it's cold, right? So a lot of Russia's ports are up here on my ceiling where it's really cold. So those ports are not open 24/7, 365, right? They only have a couple ports over here. And as you see, Japan controls this. Hard to get ships into there. So if they can gain access to Korea, they can have a warm weather port 12 months out of the year. So that's why it's important to Russia. So yeah, you can hang out in Manchuria. Don't come into Korea. So Russia's like, yeah, no, we want that port. So we're gonna do what we want to do. 1904, Japan launched a surprise attack on Russia's ships anchored off the coast of Manchuria. 1904. Gonna see that again later, aren't we? By the Japanese. a surprise attack on ships. You know what I'm talking about, right? The resulting Russo-Japanese War drives Russian troops out of Korea, and Japan captures most of Russia's Pacific Fleet. Uh-oh, this little country is now a problem. 1905, Japan and Russia begin peace negotiations that are overseen by the President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt. Okay, they signed a treaty in Portsmouth. Okay? Japan gets to keep all the territory that they got from Russia. Okay, Russia loses. The significance of this is the first time in modern history that an Asian country defeats a European power. Okay, so feather in the cap for Japan. Now that they've defeated Russia, they've defeated China, they pretty much are the bad kids on the block. They can do whatever they want. So Japan is going to go in and attack Korea. Okay, and they put down, they put the Korean government down pretty quick. The same year that they signed the treaty with Russia, they defeat Korea and make it a protectorate. 1907, the Korean king is going to give up all of his power to the Japanese, and they're going to be forced to disband their army. And in 1910, Japan officially takes over Korea. So now, Korea is under Japanese rule. Okay, the Japanese treat the Koreans terribly. Okay, think about the British in Africa, or the Belgians in the Congo. Okay, all Korean newspapers are shut down. They are forced to stop studying Korean culture and instead abide by Japanese culture. Okay, they're going to lose all their farmland. It's going to be given to Japanese citizens. Okay, they're going to bring Japanese business from Japan into Korea, force all Korean businesses to shut down, and you know, the Korean nationals are going to try to rise up, and every time they try to rise up, the Japanese become more and more harsh. Okay, so by, at the onset of World War II, so we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves now in terms of where we are, but really this kind of sets up Japan as a world power prior to World War II. All this red here, these outlines that you see throughout this map, this is all land that Japan controlled. Remember, let's think, if we're looking at like 1940 for World War II, we're talking about a 50-year period of time, 60 years at most. So they're going in, they're taking all this stuff over. Okay, islands, okay, territories, okay, countries. Right? They have become a dominant country. All right, this chart here, okay, this is just kind of looking at the similarities and differences to Japan and China. It might look a little blurry. I'll post the PowerPoints. A couple of you asked if I post the PowerPoints. I will post the PowerPoints going forward. But I just like to do this so you kind of, if there's anything that's so you can understand it better. So they both have these traditional values. They resist change. They oppose Western rule, right? Well, Japan understands that they need to modernize. Okay? They're going to take the ways of the West, and they want to strengthen their economic and military power. Okay? And they become an empire builder. They become like those imperial countries, like the United States, like Germany, like Britain. Okay? It's going to take China a long time, but eventually they are going to understand that they have to reform. Japan gets it very early. Okay, China's a little late to the party. Okay, so the last thing I want you to do, and this is going to be your discussion question for today. You have these two cartoons, all right? Okay, this one doesn't really say everything. Down here it says CHINE. Okay, over here it says to Manchuria. Okay, you got a Japanese flag, Korea. I hereby grant you a permit to traverse Korean territory. On the discussion board, and I'll post this. What do you think these two cartoons mean? Okay. In addition, all right, this is the last one. In addition, as I said earlier, if you have any concerns, there's anything that you're confused about, you missed something, you don't understand it, please comment on this so I can look and I can add, or I can make another video kind of answering any questions you might have. All 5 classes are looking at the same thing, okay? I'm not making multiple of these, so if you have a question, there's a good chance that there's a couple other people who have the same question as well. So please ask them. If you're not asking me things, I can't read your minds, okay? So let me know. Also, on Wednesday and Thursday, those discussion questions, that first do now discussion question I asked you about, like how you're getting through things. Again, I have no idea how long this is going to go on for. If it was up to me, we'd be back in school on Monday, or today if you're watching on Monday. I just, I need to know, like, what can we do if we're having struggles, if you're having issues, if you're not understanding things, you gotta let me know. If I don't know those things, I'm gonna assume that everything is fine. Okay, so please reach out. I know we've had some tech issues with the quizzes, but moving forward, we're gonna continue to do that because I still want you guys to. I want to treat it as though we're in school. I know some classes are like giving you as much time as you need. To me, that's you're gonna lose track of time very easily. And if we do go back, or when we go back, you're gonna be behind. It's gonna be very difficult for you. Okay, because I'm trying to prepare you. As I would every other year. Final exams coming up. It's going to get here before you know it. So all these things are going to be things that are going to be worked out by all the teachers. I've been in contact with a lot of the different teachers that many of you have. Just kind of get through things. I understand it's difficult being home. Sometimes your family might be driving you crazy. You're not seeing your friends. I get it. Listen, we're all in the same boat, and I feel really bad for the kids. My daughter and my son, they are missing out on their friends too, so I totally get it. Just keep in. We're going to get through it together. And again, please reach out if there's any questions or concerns. Thank you. Enjoy your day.